I'm going to talk about the track. Let me say it this way, to give you the basic orientation of what to expect. But the main thing you're going to work on, especially those of you who are new with your instructor, is to learn the line and to get to a point where you can drive the line reasonably consistently. And as good as videos and even simulators and everything else are these days, there's no substitute for driving. So with that caveat and the normal disclaimer, for everyone on this call, I highly encourage you to print out several track maps from the website because these maps are designed to take notes on. So when you come in from a run and you want to remember, where did I turn in, or how did that corner feel when I did it right, or how soon could I get on the gas? Could be anything like that. What was I looking at? Write it on the track map in the vicinity of the corner or the section of the track where that happened. And if you get in the habit of doing that and keeping these notes, you'll be amazed at how much they help you learn during the day and help you when you come back to Thunderbolt the next time. So some of you have heard me like a broken record on this topic before, but it's a very important skill that helps most people. And you can use this with your instructor. If you're having trouble at a particular corner, ask your instructor to use the track map and help explain that corner while you're in the paddock, so that next time you go out on the track, you have some of that in the back of your head. We talked about passing zones already. The only point I want to make here that I didn't make before is that, notice the section here on the track between 7 and 9, what's called turn 8. That's a curve, as you can see, it's a corner. Depending on what the chief instructors decide at Thunderbolt, they may make that a passing zone for all groups. And if they do, it'll be a passing zone on the right. So it'll be another right side passing zone. It's not straight, it's a curve, but it actually isn't hard, particularly to pass in that area. So, but that'll be discussed in the drivers' meeting if they decide to do that. But otherwise, all the passing zones here are straightaways. And the other thing to notice is that this section of the track here, from 9 through 11, is not a passing area. It's a pretty long, twisty part of the track we're going to talk about. There's no passing through there. So just be aware of that. So here we go. Turn 1. Pretty classic, almost 90-degree right-hand turn. It's uphill. I forget who asked me about elevation, but this does go uphill. So as we turn in and approach the apex, the track starts to go uphill, which helps the car turn a bit and gives us plenty of grip. So the only hard part of this corner, if you will, is that it is reasonably quick, and you may feel like, well, I can get in here earlier than we really want to. We want to apex the curb in the middle of the curbing, not before that. And if we do that, it's a fun corner, but we're approaching this on the front straight. And so we're approaching this in 4th or 5th gear. This is a 3rd gear corner. And now if you're a new student or new to Thunderbolt, you may choose to drive the whole track in 4th gear or even 3rd gear, and that's perfectly fine. But my point is you're going to be doing heavy braking entering this corner. So the challenge here is get on the brakes in plenty of time, slow the car down in a straight line, turn the car in, and then we can pick up some throttle as we approach the apex and begin to accelerate up the hill. The curb at track out here, and I should point out, I apologize, I have these cryptic abbreviations on the slides. There's a TI for turn in, the turn in point. There's an A for apex, and there's a TO for track out. Those are the three basic points that determine the curve or the line, if you will, in any given corner. So just the one thing to be aware of here, the track out curve is, you shouldn't be driving on it in the student groups. I find in some cars, there's a little bit of a groove between the asphalt and the curbing, which can actually grab the wheels a little bit and can surprise the driver, because all of a sudden it feels like the track's driving the car and you're not driving the car. But this corner, most drivers can figure out, pretty quickly, and it's a fun corner to drive because we've slowed down, we're getting back on the gas, we're going up the hill. Now, as we exit the corner here, let me move this a little bit. You're going to see a flagger at the top of the hill on your left, just off this picture that's on the slide. That flagger is going to tell us whether it's safe to proceed like normal to turn 2, because turn 2, we're coming uphill. There's a crest just somewhat before the apex of turn 2. So turn 2 is blind. We're going to turn in and not really be able to see most of the corner. And so there's a lot going on here. That's why looking at that flagger on the left as we're coming up the hill out of turn 1 is really, really important. Because if there is something going on, that flagger is going to tell us about it. If there isn't, then we can proceed like normal. And then the other thing that's happening here is cars entering the track are entering the track, along the right side here. Now, we're going to be track left exiting turn 2. They're going to be entering track right, but it's still a busy place. And some drivers, get caught out by, or surprised by, I should say, the fact that they can't see most of this corner until you get into it. It's one of probably the only really blind corner at Thunderbolt. If any of you, other than Bob, were at pit race, 10 days ago when we were there, half or more of the corners at that track were blind. So you're well conditioned for turn 2 if you were at pit race. But anyway, that's turn 2. Relatively quick corner once we figure it out. But the fact that it's blind, requires a certain amount of mental memory of where we need the car to go. Now, the back part of Thunderbolt has several nice, fast, fun corners, starting with turn 3. This is actually quite a fast corner. You can see it's pretty shallow. In other words, not a very sharp corner. In most cars, you're gonna be on the brakes, gently to slow the car down in a straight line. You're going to turn the car roughly at the turn in, and then you're going to pick up some gas and squeeze the gas pedal as you go through the corner. There are cautions here. And these cautions apply to every corner on the track, but they especially apply to the fast corners. If we get into this corner too early or too fast, there's an easy solution. We simply drive the car off in the grass, at track left in this case. What we don't want to do is try to hold the car onto the track, because if we're in too early or too fast, and we try to hold the car in, bad things are going to happen. So I'll repeat this a few times, but as we go around the track, but this is the first place I'll emphasize, because this is a fast corner, but it requires being precise with the turn in and the apex so that we get the line nailed down. Now, drivers in advanced groups may use the apex curbing in this track. And by that, I mean, the curb here where the apex is. You can see the red line is covered up, the red and white curbing, but there's a long set of curb here in the middle of turn 3. I do not recommend that those of you in green and yellow, or maybe even in blue, but certainly green and yellow, do not recommend that you use that curb, because as you go faster in the advanced groups, the inside of the car is less loaded. The car is less impacted by driving over that curb. But at the speeds you'll be driving, that curb can actually upset the car, and it's not worth it, from a learning perspective, to try to use that curb, or frankly any other curb that I'm going to talk about tonight. So be aware of the curbs there. If you do brush it, it's not going to be a big deal. It shouldn't be, but if you do hit it too much or at the wrong angle, it can really upset the car. And I'm going to repeat questions, comments as we go around here. Please jump in. Turn 4, another fast corner, although not quite as fast as turn 3. And we're approaching this one even faster. So this corner does require some brake, not a huge amount, but some braking, because it is slower than turn 3, and we're approaching it faster than we did turn 3. Advanced drivers will definitely use the curb here, even if they don't use it in 3, to straighten this section out. But again, I recommend that you not do that, because again, it can push, your car in a direction that you don't want to. Now, turn 5 is the exception to the rule of fast corners on the back part of the track, right? Turns 3, 4, 6, even 7, pretty quick corners. 5 is a much slower corner. You can see it's 90 degrees plus left-hand corner, and most drivers make the mistake of trying to overdrive, meaning trying to drive it too quickly. So this is, some of you have heard the term slow in, fast out. This is a slow in, fast out corner, because it is followed by a quick section of the track. Now, I want to make a point here about the connection between turns 4 and 5. They're pretty close physically. There's not a big distance between 4 and 5, and it turns out that if as you exit turn 4, if you don't try to force yourself to get all the way back track right, entering 5, it's just a lot easier. And there's no reason, the way turn 5 drives, to be all the way track right. So we tend, pretty much everybody tends to approach turn 5 from mid-track, or even some people from the left side of the track. But as in green and yellow, think about the middle of the track here. Don't worry about, because it's kind of you almost have to force the car to get all the way back to the right here, and it's kind of unnatural, where the car is perfectly happy being in the middle of the track and turning in for 5. It's the exception to the general rule that we want to be all the way track left or right, before a corner. So turn 6 coming up, another nice quick corner. A little bit sharper than 3, not as sharp as 4. And I'll emphasize here that like several corners at Thunderbolt and many tracks, the apex is not just a point. I've drawn on the slide here the apex as an arrow, like it's a specific point. But if you notice the red line, it follows this apex curbing for quite a distance. And think of that as a zone. We want to run along that curbing along the edge of it for 10 or 20 or maybe even 30 feet, to make this a nice, big, gentle arc. This corner, requires a little bit of brake, not a lot, a gentle brake, back on the gas to settle the car and drive through the corner. Now, we're approaching turn 7 coming up is not that unusual a corner, but everything that follows it is the signature part of Thunderbolt. referred to as the octopus for reasons you can probably guess from this overhead view of the track. And so there's this whole sequence of connected corners which means it's starting at turn 9 all the way through to turn 11. We have to compromise what we would normally drive in order to deal with what follows. So if you're in green and yellow, don't worry too much about that. Your instructor is going to show you the line, but 7 is pretty straightforward, although it's slower than 6, and we do have to do some braking to come in, but still, it's a fun corner, nice and quick, and it feeds into turn 8, which is actually, it's not a straightaway, but it's one big arc, and we don't treat it like a corner. We just drive it, and there's as many lines through turn 8 as there are cars and drivers, I suppose. But the idea is find an arc from the track out of turn 7 over to the vicinity of the turn in for turn 9, which by the way is not track left. It's somewhere between the middle of the track on the right side of the track here. Your instructor will work with you to find an arc through here that you're comfortable with, and it's great fun. The cars, it's relatively quick, and a lot of fun to get the car hustled through this nice big wide sweeping turn. What that sets us up for, though, is, whoops, went the wrong way. Sorry about that. But I guess is the whole octopus. So here's turn 9. So we're approaching turn 9 from that nice sweeping arc, but notice how sharp turn 9 is. If you look at the whole, dimension of this corner, it is well and truly a lot more than 90 degrees. It's a pretty sharp corner, made worse by the fact that the way we have to exit it to set up 10 compromises the exit. And if anything, it's off camber. So the track up to this point has had favorable camber, nice corners, nice quick corners. Now it's set us up to suck us in. We've been comfortable. We've been going through corners. The car's felt good. It's felt glued. We're going quick. Now, guess what? Slow corners, unfavorable camber, all the reverse of everything we've just put up with. So we've just experienced, which we liked. So, we have to adjust our head coming into this section. So this is a very slow, long corner. Lots of trail braking. What do I mean by trail braking? You can use the brakes, at 30%, 40%, 50% as you slow down coming at the end of turn 8. And that's going to do two things. It's going to slow you down for turn 9. It's going to help the car turn. Look how far the car has to turn for turn 9. We have to have the steering wheel turn to the right, what seems like forever. And by the way, as you start turn 9, turn your head to the right, at least 90 degrees. You should see your instructor's helmet in your peripheral vision, probably, if you're looking correctly. Got to get the eyes all the way around the corner here. So, and we have to be patient. Slow corner, and we're going to follow the curbing all the way around. And the reason that it's compromised is, notice that the line exiting from turn 9, we have to hug this curbing all the way so that we can kind of go diagonally across the track to the beginning of turn 10 over here. If we had exited turn 9 over track left, which is what we would like to do to make it faster, now we'd be in worse shape coming into 10. So, and 10 is this whole 180 degree plus corner. And the line here is pretty simple. The line is follow the curbing, follow the curbing all the way around. And this, oh, and I should point out that elevation, from 9 down to 10 is downhill, which is not helpful. And the track is off, and the track is angled or cambered, if you will, banked in the wrong direction. So the track, this whole section of the track here is off camber, meaning the car feels like it doesn't want to do anything. It's not happy. Well, it's a slow corner. We follow the curbing around, and requires patience. For those of you who've done skid pads or autocross, this is a great this is a big skid pad. Oops, I went the wrong way. It's a big skid pad. You can, give the car a touch of throttle, and the car will probably run wide, or you can back off the gas a little bit, and the nose will tuck in. So it's actually a good place it's one of the very few places on a track that we drive where you can actually experience, that kind of reaction to a car on track at a safe speed, because this is a slow corner. So,
hey Bill, just got a question about that.
Sure.
So if it rains over the weekend, do we need to be extra cautious about this particular turn, or like could we kind of treat it like a skid pad, kind of like what you were saying?
That's a great question, Angelo. Yes, you can. This corner you can treat like a skid pad, because this is slow enough and safe enough that, if you were to, spin the car or something, nothing bad's going to happen. There's all kinds of runoff, and you're not going that fast. If it's wet, it's the fast corners to treat with ultimate respect, because if it's wet and you go off, in a fast corner, not so good, right? And when it's wet, the grass is wet. So when you hit the grass, the car doesn't slow down nearly as much as it would if the grass and dirt were dry. So that's a great question. And this actually would be a fun place to drive in the wet, because you could dance the car around here with the gas pedal without any trouble at all. I wouldn't mind having a student do that. I'd be comfortable with that. I would not be comfortable with a student doing anything like that in the faster corners. Okay. So 11 A and B, or 11 and 11A, depending on how you count the numbers, is this flat set of S's. But notice that we have to enter, we want to enter the beginning here from track left, which means that we have to exit, turn 10, all the way over here. Again, we would prefer to exit turn 10 on track right, but because of the way 11A is set up, we actually have to hold the left side of the track here longer than we would typically like. So we straighten this section out, and now we're setting up the front straight. So now we're beginning the fastest section of the track. And that's why it's so important to drive 10 correctly, because it sets this whole section that leads us onto the front. So here we have the S's in 11, and these are pretty straightforward. They lead to turn 12, which is a very fast late apex corner, but it's very easy to get this one wrong. All the comments I've made before about fast corners, apply here in spades. Advanced drivers are going to use the lower part of the curb here. For students, I would tell you to avoid the curb. If it's wet, stay as far away. Don't get near any curbs in the wet. In the wet, curbs have two problems. One, they tend to move the car if you bump the curb, because it's not usually level with the track. And number two, the curbs are painted red and white, right? Well, paint isn't very friendly with water. And so if the track's wet, you don't want to be near any curb, I don't care whether you're a student driver or, the most advanced driver on the track, because the curbs are going to be slippery. But even in the dry, I encourage those of you in green and yellow not to worry about the curb, just apex the corner, up against the curb, and you'll be fine. And the comments I made before, if you get in too fast or early on this, then just drive the car off into the grass. And when you do drive, if you do drive the car off into the grass, you slow down some more, then you count to 10, and then you think about getting back on track, looking for a flagger and so on. Because if you try to come back on the track too soon or too fast, bad things happen. So, and those of us who are chief instructors, when we talk to people who've had an off, we do not penalize anyone for deciding to drive off the track. That's always a good decision. A bad decision is trying to keep the car on the track, because that's when bad things happen. And this corner is fast and lots of fun, but again, requires precision, and it's easy to make a mistake here that you might not want. Now, I say all that. Most drivers in green and yellow, it's never an issue, but we talk about safe, serious fun because we emphasize safety first. So just a quick summary. We've talked about all these. We don't want to be early on any of the fast corners. We want to look at that flag station, come up the hill, track left, at turn 2. We want to avoid the curbs, doubly so if it's wet. Turn 5 slow, have patience in the octopus. Many of you have heard the Randy Pope's quote, "What's the fastest way through a slow corner?" Slow. And then treat turn 12 with lots of respect. And most important, when you're at Thunderbolt, have fun. We all come to the track to have fun.